All right, everyone. Bank of America is saying, oh, we're no longer going to lend money to businesses that manufacture or sell assault-style weapons, military-style weapons. Now, number one, of course, the definition of that is totally bogus. The average person thinks that means an AR-15. That is not a military weapon. It's not a military-style weapon. It's cosmetically similar to an actual military weapon. That makes no sense. That's like saying that a plastic sword is similar to a real sword. Okay, it may look a little bit similar. Or a wall hanger. Yeah, you can stab somebody with it. Trust me, it's not the same thing as an actual blade that's meant to be used in a combat situation. There's a big difference. With your rat tail tang and your low-grade stainless steel, you can do some damage, not for very long before it probably shatters. Keeping that in mind. I realize it's not a 100% overlap with the AR-15, which of course is a fine rifle, but it's not the same as its military cousin. It doesn't have automatic firing capabilities. There are other differences as well that people don't generally bother to talk about. That pretty much illustrates the point. But Bank of America should be boycotted, but here's the thing. Simply saying, well, I have an account there, I'm closing it and moving to a different bank, that's good. That certainly helps. Especially if you contact them and you tell them that's why you're doing so. And basically respect the fucking Constitution. And Citigroup did this before. That would be one thing. Another thing is to target the businesses that they work with. We've seen this kind of craptivism over and over. The only time I think that it makes sense to use it is when you're opposing a corporate group. If it's about a private individual, like you're saying, oh, well, this random person, total civilian, not in an elected position, private individual, said something online we don't like, so we're going to try to get them fired from their job. That's a little bit different from saying, hey, this bank shouldn't be delving into politics. Private entities, banks, corporations, whatever, shouldn't be engaged in moral behavior. They're not moral. They're not meant to be moral actors. They're not capable of being moral actors. The only reason Bank of America is doing this is they're looking at the number of groups that they work with and how much money ultimately they skim off the top on these manufacturers and sellers. And they're saying, it's peanuts compared to everything else. If we lose that business, it's not a big hit. Maybe we gain new business because, the anti-gunners, maybe they'll want to open Bank of America accounts. But the thing is, ultimately what this boils down to is an attack on the U.S. Constitution by a private entity. It is an attempt that was openly proclaimed by craptivists on the so-called left. They're not actual leftists at this point. They're just authoritarians. They openly proclaimed, oh, we want the banks to get involved and just stop lending money to these groups. You do realize, though, I can tell you what will end up happening before you worry too much if you're like a gun owner or something. What'll end up happening is that other banks will say, oh, we have no problem with lending to these manufacturers. Oh, they can't get business with anyone else. We support the Constitution. The kickback is coming. I can tell you that. We've seen it before on the gun debate especially. It happens in general, and we're in a paradigm shift. Over the next couple of years, I think there's going to be a monumental tidal wave of pro-Second Amendment rhetoric coming forth. It'll be involved with alt tech. It'll be involved with maybe there'll be a new banking system set up. By the way, I can't imagine that the average firearm manufacturer, high pay as they tend to be in some cases, if they're already doing well, they probably don't need money lent to them. All they need to do is be able to store and conduct transactions. They can use all sorts of banks for that. There are many of them. It's not just the big banks like a Bank of America. There are smaller, more local alternatives as well. There are regional banks all over the country. They can use them. And those, by the way, those banks can then conduct transactions like a third party with these other ones. They're like, oh, we don't have a Bank of America account. We can still do business with them. It's just we can't store money with them. We can't have an account with them. We can't conduct transactions directly, but we can use a middleman bank. Okay, it's an extra 1% withdrawal fee or something. Oh, okay, we'll just raise our prices by $1 per unit. Nobody's going to give a fuck. The free market will fix it. The point is, guns are legal. We are citizens in the United States. We're not slaves. We're not a direct democracy. The fact that the majority of citizens wants to ban some class of rifle, well, basically screw off. It's not up for debate. It's not up for a direct democratic style of vote. It's a constitutional issue. Much like with prohibition of alcohol, Congress then realized, hey, we can't prohibit it directly. maybe the transfer from state to state, but we can't prevent people from just drinking or making their own basement liquor. So they had to pass a constitutional amendment to outlaw it. They understood at the time that they had to do that. They had to expand the Constitution to actually get such a law to conform to it. They then decided that somehow they didn't need that for the drug war, and of course it's caused nothing but problems. Now people want the same for firearms. So basically you want to add a whole new host of things that cartels and inner city gangs can sell, while disarming people, making them more susceptible to violence again from cartels and inner city gangs, while endangering the very fabric of the founding of this nation, while endangering us also in the sense of our capability to resist against tyranny that all of you agree exists already. You're already calling the president Adolf Hitler, so I don't know why you'd want fewer guns. I'd think you'd want to rescind more gun control and be more well-armed, but apparently you're too dumb to realize that if you're in that part of the United States. You're part of that mentality. It's really rather strange. Oh, we're being led by a tyrant. Let's get rid of more guns in civilian hands. Now, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. Let's restrict free speech more. let's prevent people from saying unkind, potentially offensive things while we're fighting against this dictator. I don't know. I don't think the logic follows. Bank of America comes in and says, well, this is a moral issue. We want to do whatever we can to stop shootings. If you're afraid of that, why don't you stop lending to any company that sells alcohol? Why don't you stop lending to automotive manufacturers? Why don't you stop working with companies that sell, knives? They're used far more in crimes. They kill far more people and more crimes in general than any assault rifle class, the AR-15 or any other. What about handguns? They're number one when it comes to violent weapons being deployed in taking people's lives. What about the pharma companies you work with that dope people up on antidepressants and then dissuade them from getting therapy, causing sky-high suicide rates? You see, you're not actually caring about people's lives. You're just trying to grandstand based on a current wedge issue, a political hot potato issue you've decided to take aside in order to market yourself, to get in the news, to change your brand's image. Oh, we're squeaky clean. We don't sell those evil baby-killing AR-15s anymore with our transactions. You won't find that at Bank of America. You can be safe and sound. You can buy a car and run off a cliff. You can drink yourself to death. Hell, maybe they lend to tobacco corporations. That'd be a funny one. I doubt it, but maybe they do. But you can't buy this particular type of weapon anymore using our bank because somehow we are moral. We're moral arbiters. Trust me when I say no serious individual who proclaims themselves a liberal and knows what that means is ever going to say, hey, this multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporate or banking entity should be deciding what can and cannot be said or sold. That's a terrible idea. That's nuts. Is really it's actually closer to fascism than anything that you're identifying with populism. In the most literal sense, okay, privatizing abuse, giving corporations power over speech, over your ability to defend yourself, over privacy with Facebook and the testimony they're giving. So you're talking about endorsing fascism light, okay, while proclaiming that the president is Hitler and fascist, but you want less guns. You want less speech. You want corporations Trump's billionaire, but we want corporations, because they're rich and therefore they're benevolent, to regulate online speech, to regulate everything. Ha ha ha. That works so well for the drug war. It works so well for banning anything else that's banned. Oh, you're not allowed to assault people. Oh, well, then nobody should ever be assaulting anyone. It's illegal. We'll just make the AR-15 illegal. That'll cure the problem. Yeah, no, I think it'll cause 10 million people to revolt. And they'll be far better armed than the police would be at that point. Be a little bit of a problem now, wouldn't it? No, I think it would cause civil war. We're on the precipice, supposedly, according to people who, and this is not something I 100% disagree with, by the way. People criticizing Trump on the serious stuff right now, they certainly have valid complaints. I'm going to be getting into that in my next video. You're saying we're on the precipice of World War III. We should have fewer weapons around, for the aftermath. So people they can't defend themselves. At that point, you're definitely going to need your gun to hunt with, and you're going to want it to be as powerful and hold as many bullets as possible, because otherwise you might starve. So, yeah, you may want to rethink your entire policy here. And Bank of America can just kiss off. Stop trying to pretend that you're a moral actor. Stop trying to pretend that this isn't the result of some boardroom meeting where you said, oh, I think we can increase our income by 2 or 3 points if we just ban companies from selling, these uber scary baby killing assault rifles and doing business with us. We think that we can get a bunch of young millennials to open up Bank of America accounts because they have no idea what's going on. They don't realize that we work with companies that employ slaves overseas. They don't realize we work with companies that sell drugs to people. They don't realize that we work with companies that sell every other fucking gun under the sun. Guns and bullets and everything. You're not even anti-gun. Corporations aren't people. Corporation doesn't have opinions. Its shareholders or its boardroom have opinions. Those are the people that design the policy. It's not Bank of America doesn't have a fucking problem with you owning any kind of gun. No, their CEO and their major shareholder, the people that attend their boardroom meetings where they eat caviar and drink the really, really expensive champagne, those are the kind of people that are trying to design such fiscal policies. Is that really the kind of people the left wants to trust? Champagne swilling 7- and 8-figure salary figures with tuxedos that cost more than your car? That's the kind of, the white gloves and bow tie and the Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan block party sort of people? Oh yeah, I got this tin of caviar imported straight from Japan. It's really, really rare stuff. Sea dragon eggs. Costs only $20,000 an ounce. Can you believe it? What a steal. It was like a bargain basement sort of thing. These are the sort of people that you trust to tell people what is or is not right, what you can and cannot do, as far as defending yourself or your nation. Do you trust them you obviously don't want a billionaire leading the nation in an elected capacity. Why would you want him leading it in every other capacity? You're saying, oh, they have too much wealth. We need to redistribute. Okay. So you're saying that you're going to trust the same people that will, trust me, vigorously fight against that basic communistic idea. By the way, on that one, I'd be with them. No, absolutely. They have the right to be rich. Absolutely. It's through their own effort. But they don't have the right to tell you what you can and cannot think or say. They don't have the right to attempt to prevent you from effectively defending yourself. Absolutely not. And the people who are like, you want to own a gun or something, time to get it is now, I guess, because every state appears to be attacking the premise. It'll take years for the courts to finally side with the Second Amendment. It takes them forever to take these cases up. I'm confident that over the next couple of years, most of these attacks on the Second Amendment will dry up and blow away. Banks that have stopped doing business with these groups will suffer. That's just my opinion. That's what I believe will happen. And states that have enacted unconstitutional gun control, they'll have it ripped apart by SCOTUS. But it's going to take a couple of years to undo all that damage. It's going to take a couple of years. Because that's how slow our fucking court system is. They should expedite these things. Whenever there's a legitimate reason to believe the Constitution itself is being directly attacked, they should take it up the next day. They shouldn't have to go through a million different month-long procedures to decide, oh, are we going to take the case up? No, you should be forced to take the case up. Make a decision and stop being cowards. Stop worrying if someone's going to call you an activist judge. They're going to do that anyway. They're going to do that. It doesn't matter what case you take up. It doesn't matter who the plaintiff or the defendant is. They're going to call you activist. Whoever doesn't like your result, even if it's totally unanimous, they're going to say, activist judges, oh, we need to have term limits for them too. If only we could, get rid of these idiots. And then when you make a decision they like, they'll be like, the Supreme Court's only branch that stands for the Constitution. But this is cut and dry sort of stuff. As for Bank of America, they can pretend that this is a moral move. No, it's a money move. It's just like when these big tech firms say, oh, no more guns on YouTube. It's a money move. They're doing it for public image. They're not doing it because they actually care. They don't give a fuck. No, some NGO threatened to enact a boycott of their company if they didn't. So it's a fiscal motive. It's a bunch of people are trying to blackmail them, basically. That's about all. Peace out.